A dream about you, Lydia. Hi. Um, welcome. If you were not in the rewatch portion of the stream that we just did a minute ago, I think that is going to probably be the simplest solution for community rewatches that we do going forward, is just do them an hour in advance of the this hangout itself. This hangout is the Patreon hangout for people in the $5 and up group over on the Patreon. There's a link in the description if you are interested in joining at some point. But we stream and it is free to all. The discussion itself, and I always try and keep an eye on chat. Yeah, words. Oh, and these discussions are fully spoiled. So if you are in the stream and have not finished Buffy and Angel, thank you, Dragon Fruit. I appreciate it. If you have not finished Buffy or Angel, then you may want to opt out unless you don't care about spoilers. The other thing, too, is once we're done watching this video, I'm going to join a meeting with people who support the channel on Patreon who wish to show up and have a discussion about an episode. I think of it like a book club for the episode itself. Those people are not necessarily YouTubers. Some of them are, but they're not public figures. They're not people who are necessarily choosing to subject themselves to the ether of the internet. And so, to me, different rules apply. Any unkind or rude comments about any of the people who join is going to get you banned or kicked out. Even if you disagree vehemently, that's just how it is. If you don't like my hair, or think I should have trimmed up the beard, or any of that stuff, I may still mute you, but that's just because I'm sensitive. All right, let's watch the episode. So this is the video for First Impressions, Season 2, Episode 3. I tend to forget what I wrote maybe a week after the episode is done. Josh, hey, welcome. So we shall see. But in 2 weeks, we'll be watching the next Buffy episode. We'll probably do the rewatch the same way we just did it. Yeah, this is a long video, so let's get to it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, play. Okay, my feelings on First Impressions are complicated. Typically, I consume media in one of two ways. There's the bingey, chewing through the episodes to get to the meat of the story kind of watch. Then there is the 3 to 4 hour rewatch while taking notes to review.
Whatever. Can I go?
Each type of consumption tends to net drastically different results, and I've mentioned a number of times how watching an episode for the purposes of making a video about it has allowed me to appreciate levels of depth and connections I'd missed before, and elevated my experience of it, but feel like a bit of a mire. Are we never supposed to have stories that deal with questions of race, sexual violence, homosexuality, or gender? Of course we are. Weighing the value of their use, though, is to me mostly a question of execution and payoff. Does the use of them find something new and innovative to say? Does it turn the prism of our perspective and reveal something interesting? Does it do the traditionally marginalized, as with Judy, justice? In the case of First Impressions,
How about that thank you?
not so much. The two different worlds stuff eventually works collectively over the series as part of Gunn's arc, and pays off in an interesting fashion. The problem is that in these early one-off episodes, it just feels so tired and on the nose. Generally, as they move Gunn away from those stock archetypes, which the writers don't seem to know how to develop, his character just becomes more interesting. That any of this material works now is a testament to J. August Richards' stunning charisma, and that other than the mishmash of ingredients in this theme soup, this is a pretty entertaining episode. In fact, when I went back and watched First Impressions a second time for this video without my laptop in front of me, I probably enjoyed the episode more than I ever had previously, because the elements of the story I found ambiguously irksome were now clarified and understood. And that is really one of the rewards of having this discussion in the first place, to clarify and understand what might have been storytelling missteps and why they were. So we can say, all right, cool, I get it, and then just enjoy the rest. I forgot to post the link. Publish now. Link to join the meeting is up. So if you're a patron and want to join in, talk about that episode, yada yada. Yeah, we've done this before. Everyone knows what's up. Go join the meeting. That was better than I thought it was. That's a tough episode to talk. Like, to me, the problems. I mean, obviously, I'm never going to be super excited about diving into certain topics, but due diligence requires that if we're going to do these characters justice or the what have you, then you have to do that. You have to get that done. So by and large, I think that one turned out better than I remembered. I'm very sorry. Hang on just one sec. Boop. Sorry about that. I live in a house with 6 kids. Well, 3 kids and 3 teenagers, so they wouldn't appreciate it if I said that. Anyway, best reviewer on the internet for nerdy stuff. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the meeting now, and we'll go from there. All right. So switching over. Camera is starting. Hi, everybody. Mic is muted. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Welcome. It is... sorry, brain fry. We know the deal. Hi, we're talking about first impressions today. Hopefully, those kind of episodes, the old gang of mine kinds of episodes, I think can be a bit of a challenge to talk about. Hopefully there was I now I remember why that video had to be 22 minutes. It's so funny how you think the video, Hush is coming up. It's like, and it's good. Oh, First Impressions is coming up. He'll just rocket through that. Well, yeah. So but I hope that held everyone's interest and worked out. Hope everyone in the States had a good Thanksgiving, and everyone not in the States, hope you had a good, normal day that had nothing to do with yam shams and turkeys. All right, that's enough. Let me just go over to Tom. Tom, hey, how you doing? I cannot hear you, but that may be me.
Okay, I just unmuted.
Oh, there we go.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Didn't expect to go first. That was good. I'm good. How are you, Ian?
I'm good.
Did you eat too much?
Well, of course, but that wasn't Thanksgiving. Okay. That's just because I like to eat. What about you? Good Thanksgiving?
It was nothing special.
Yeah. I heard a lot of friends doing Zoom Thanksgivings. So
Yeah, it was basically it's the day off.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about
I've had plenty of those. So.
let's talk about first impressions.
Uh
And
huh.
forgot to get the timer open. I apologize. It just helps me make sure everyone gets fair shake. First impressions, Gundelia, that whole doobly doo. Tell me about the episode.
Um, it's not it's not one of my favorites. It's an okay. Um, it's interesting. It's more it's always although I would say it's always better than I remember it being.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put
It's
it.
been a while since I've watched it. I'll watch it and say, "Oh yeah, this is better than I remembered." You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I mean, the things I always remember enjoying are the Darla scenes with Angel in the dream, especially the one in Caritas, and and I also love the recovery scene when they're sitting there, and the discussion about movies.
yes. That's that. Those I think those two are the standouts, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then other than that, there are moments like when you mentioned the angel headbutting the vampire girl, and that was kind of nice in the pink helmet,
it's a
and
it's a good
but
surprise. I don't know if you were watching the rewatch,
yeah,
but we someone I asked. Seems pretty dramatic. He could have just been like, "Hey, we know you're a vampire," and then someone pointed out, "But Angel's dramatic all the time. That's kind of one of his characteristics." And I went, "Oh yeah." Including with the
yeah,
Hollywood flip at the end of the completely unnecessary front flip at the very end of it. Yeah, yeah, and I like it.
well that
It's just
well
funny.
that he does that to increase the momentum of the sword strike, the axe strike into the guy's head. That makes the axe strike even more devastating than it would have been if he hadn't done the extra flip.
Fair enough. I like it.
Yeah, that's
It's
what I
just
always say.
science,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. I didn't think about science of that. So this is also setting up. There's a how they foreshadow the turn and Angel firing everyone
Hmm.
multiple times, starting with "Are You Now?" Take them all, and again here, and is sort of there's a lot of setup for Gunn going off and doing his thing on his own, and how that's a mistake, and that of course is hinting at Angel. Like how well does this season work for you? That's sort of the I mean that's the opera of the season that they're setting up.
Hmm.
Um, does it play?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is my favorite season. Except, well, I'm sorry, five is a favorite season, but
Yeah, five.
this comes second.
Yeah.
This is my second favorite
I
season.
mean, I'm not saying he has, and anyone who doesn't think he has one of the better ones, but yes, I feel
Yeah.
similarly.
Um, and I was this is the kind of the um Gunn and Cordy really get to know each other kind of thing. I mean, they've worked together a few times, but this is the first time they've really have a chance to bond, so to speak. And just like the the zombie cop episode is for Gunn and Wesley to bond.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Similar
because
feelings about
Angel
both.
and Gunn have already bonded over stuff, so killing vampires. So they all have to have their bonding moments, and of course Wesley and Cordelia bonded in Buffy, and with a horrible kiss, but they still bonded.
It's I've never thought of that moment as a bonding moment, but I could see it for sure.
Well, and they did kind of make up for it when he's reintroduced.
He did. I love that he gets a
Again,
second chance at that kiss. That's not what that
and that
moment
was
means for
that
her.
was a
but
much better kiss
yeah.
the second time around.
Actually,
Yeah.
I thought it went rather well, better than the last time. Hi, Toby. Hi. Um. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about this? About first impressions?
um, not, really. It's like I said, it's not a high on my list, but
Yeah.
like I said,
so,
better than you remember it.
some that kind of held up as I was watching it, where it was like the first time through being able to clarify the things that I find frustrating about the episode allowed me the second time through to just enjoy the stuff that was there to enjoy. And honestly, when we have these discussions, I know some people, there are some people who like take some of these discussions hard, who have sort of the prized possession perspective on the show, or like if we say one negative thing about it, then it all falls down. I don't believe that's true. I actually think that maybe these conversations where we sometimes feel like we're indulging in nitpickery
Right.
allow us to then just ignore that stuff and enjoy the rest.
It's kind of like when you do with iRobot. It's and Eugene. That's obviously one of the greater episodes ever.
Right.
But for some reason, we have a blind spot about it. But we accept that.
On my recent rewatch, which hit a wall when I got to the point where I am in the episode guides, I enjoyed season 1 more than I ever have. I don't know how many times I've watched the series, but I'm starting to get to the point now where I just kind of have fun with season 1, and that's a nice place to be. That's the thing is, like, every episode where I've had a negative review of something, I've just been like, people who feel hurt by the review, I'm like, you have the better experience. I would rather have that, I would rather love those ones. But anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of with a lot of reactors over the past 8 months of isolation, and a lot of new reactors, people who've never watched it, and they've enjoyed all seem to enjoy everything, all the episodes in season 1. Some have say like some are better than others, but they're all reacting to it for the first time, and that's exciting.
Yeah. Well,
because you realize I'm thinking too hard about this.
Yeah, well, I've been accused of that more than once. It just tends to be something I don't know how to turn off successfully. All right, but I appreciate it. Let me
Thank you.
Switch up and go to. I forgot how to use Google Meet for a minute. Let's go to Charlie. If this is gonna work, is this gonna work? Pin to screen. Hi.
I'm here. Hi.
You're working great. It's the buttons on the side that I was like, I don't. How's things?
Are you good?
I guess. Am I ever really good during these streams? Am I ever normal?
You're always good. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're very kind. First impressions. Any angle you want on it. I think there's quite a between the sort of the strange feminization jokes or the I don't know what comes up for you when you watch this one.
Yeah, definitely. So I've always enjoyed this episode. I think it's one I've enjoyed more for what it kind of points to rather than what it accomplishes. I think, but I've always found it enjoyable. I like me a Cordelia centric episode.
Mm-hmm.
What can I say? Yeah, definitely though. I do find it funny that's the scene with the pink helmet, just because I'm just like, yeah, dude, it is just a helmet.
Yeah.
But and almost I find it much more funny before Wesley does the hop on gorgeous joke. I think it's very funny more when just Wesley is just completely straight about it. Like, what's the problem going on? Like, when he's straight, like, even though, you know, he's joking, Wesley is totally sees what the problem is, because masculinity is fragile. But it's I like that joke quite a bit when he was playing it straight. Like, just put it on.
It sort of
it's the law.
hammers it home. Fussy Angel is a ton of fun, though.
It is fun. Look, it's a funny scene. It's almost kind of like we do. I feel like it's definitely, this episode is definitely, again, pointing to, I think, rather than doing a good criticism of masculinity, or and I feel like it's so weird because the stuff with Gunn is hammed up almost. His masculinity, it's a bit nailed in for us, whereas I find much more interesting this throwaway comic scene with the pink helmet.
I mean, that's a great comparison, right? We have a large developed background of Angel understanding. He's a fully fleshed out character, and at this point in the series, Gunn is hyper tropey. I mean, the ruining a guy's rep, some chick punching the wall in rage, the this, that, and the other thing. You know, we have one aspect into his character so far, and that's his relationship with his sister, and that scene plays well. But the rest of the time, I just find him so tropey to a kind of exhausting degree.
It just feels like this episode is saying, look, over here is the problem. Gunn has the problem here. And we haven't built that, it comes off very, look over here. And I'm just like, well, no, what about over there?
Yeah.
Why does Cordelia have to fix Gunn? And all the problematic stuff that comes up with that, when we've got these other characters who are also displaying, you know, signs of problems with masculinity. That's just my thing. It's just kind of, this episode is very much like, look over here, here's the problem. And I'm like, it's too ham-fisted, it's trying too hard, I think.
Well, that's why the masculinity stuff to me feels so accidental, because there are so many notes playing against itself in that mix, and yet, accident or no, because Gunn's tropiness means that a lot of those conversations are driven towards masculine, feminine perspectives, albeit tedious ones, tedious tropey ones. It's there, you know. And I hadn't thought about the parallel of Cordy trying to fix Charles and Wes trying to fix Angel with the helmet. But that's interesting. That is there. That parallel. And boy, does it
I don't think
work,
Wesley was trying to fix him.
No, it's not. Exactly. But it's there.
It's arguably more interesting.
Yeah.
This throwaway comic. I don't know. And Angel definitely has. I think, you pointed out the whole, the Darla being very that hyper, almost a 50s housewife sort of stereotype in this episode. That's interesting, and that's again playing into it's just, for me, it's just like, it's the characters we've seen more of. It's more interesting to explore that with them than to have Gunn and immediately have Gunn. Oh, Gunn has this problem. He has this problem. It's interesting. I do like the whole, definitely the fact that he puts too much responsibility on himself.
Yeah.
That's good. That's the thing where I'm like, I believe that from what we've seen. I'd like to see more of that. We get a bit more of it later, but that's mostly about him juggling the two lives. But that's interesting, and that feels more natural. It's just because it's tied up with all the rest of what they're doing. It doesn't quite work. Yeah.
Doesn't quite harmonize.
Yeah, but I enjoy the episode, and I think I think it's always I can do quite a lot with something with sort of anything that sort of points at a larger theme or issue or character arc, but doesn't quite accomplish it.
Yes.
I can do a lot with that in my head.
Yeah.
So I watch this episode and I'm thinking about a lot of things and I'm enjoying it, and it's doing the work of evoking the thought process for me about these characters and all that, even though it's not quite getting to the end goal. It's
theme canoning. Yeah. You can close the gap, the theme gap a little bit yourself. I like that. There was something I was going to say. Yeah, and in my mind, when we have discussions of not sticking the landing on theme, there's a hierarchy of priority when it comes to making any piece of entertainment. And for me, the number one is always like, it needs to be entertaining, And as long as you sort of stick that landing, it's like, well, I think we can kind of work with. That's why I like Beer Bad. I think Beer Bad is thematically skull numbing, but it's an entertaining episode. So that's sort of the definitive candy episode. That's where that sort of all comes from. It's like, it's still fun. And this one,
any episode where Parker gets hit over the head is a good episode.
Well, and this one, this one's still entertaining, even if not all of those notes kind of come together.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, my only other thing with this episode was I love it because it's a Cordelia-centric episode, and we're seeing her being what's the word? She's handling things. She's taking charge. She's being a hero, and I love that. I will be nitpicky and go when the scene where she saves Veronica, I think was her name. Where she saves her, she presses a towel to the wound and thing. And I'm just like, you're saying there's like a dozen people in the background. No one else can press a towel. Like no one knows to like stop someone from bleeding. Like it was for me very much like we just needed her to be the savior.
Sure.
So but it ends up just being like there's these dozen people looking down, like just looking very incompetent, and I don't know. That's my nitpick of the episode. Is very much like she's stopping a wound she's putting pressure on a wound. I think most people would kind of know somewhat to do that. And later we see her be more like, oh, I think the carotid was, or something like that, which is a bit more technical knowledge. But that bit was like, yeah.
Well, when we did the rewatch stream, someone said, "How did all the vampires get in there, and where did they all go?" And I think they were kind of plot pyres, and I think we have a little bit of that in that scene as well, where it's like, yeah, we needed that beat with her to get there. So, but I get it completely. Is there anything else? Go ahead.
Nothing else. Only my thing. I found it quite funny. There was the previously on Angel that I was watching in the beginning, and they explain the whole who Dennis is, because we get that one scene.
The boy,
Dennis, her roommate. They do in the previously on explaining who he is, just because there's that one scene where she's talking to thin air, and I find that hilarious because he doesn't have anything to do with the plot or anything like that. They just have to have him in the previously on to explain why she's talking to thin air. I feel like you could get like, I don't know. I found that funny for some reason.
Yeah, Dennis is another David Nabbit or a Kate even at some point in this season, where it's like there were a lot of characters that were experiments. And I like the experimentation. I do enjoy that Angel feels more experimental than even Buffy does at times. But Dennis to me is one of those ones where like, you could have done more. He was so cool.
he just kind of disappears eventually. I'm literally, I think I'm in season 4. I'm just going, but what about Dennis? What's he doing?
Yeah.
Where is he? Like, it's like no one thinking.
Every expression of Dennis on the show is an expression of kindness. He's getting drinks for people. He's pulling chairs out. Like he's just, and maybe that's the problem for the tone they were trying to set, which was just too dark, or not too, but just much darker. So I don't know, but maybe Dennis would have had a longer shelf life on Buffy. Anyway,
Yeah, I guess he would fit more. Yep, I'm done. Looking good.
All right, good deal.
Yeah.
Now let me see if I can remember how to Google Meet back to. Let's go to. By the way, show of hands. Does anyone need to get out of here early? I always forget to ask until we're. All right, good deal. Then I'm gonna go to Russell. Russell, sir, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How's my mic working today?
Oh, you sound crystal clear. No hiss at all.
Perfect. I got a new computer, so I was kind of concerned. So how are you doing, Ian?
I'm good. Jack and I got a weird little podcast up on Monday, and I think the thing I wrote for the ending is going to be a video at some point. Feels like a sequel to the Toolbox Fallacy, maybe. And ran into some problems getting scripts done this week with the holiday. But should be able to wrap up by Monday and get another video probably December 2nd is the target for Shadow. That was a lot of detail for how you doing.
Let's see.
So first impressions.
Yeah, first impressions. Before I continue, you did give the spoiler alert, right?
I did, yes.
We are okay. I love Cordelia's arc. To me, she has the best arc in the entire series. And her relationship with Gunn just furthers just my opinion about where she goes with that. I know a lot of people think of season 4. I will defend that later down the road, but she does. From Buffy episode 1 to where she gets to You're Welcome, I think she has the best character development throughout the show.
I think she's a strong case. I don't know that I can make the distinction between my personal favorite, which is probably Wesley, versus there is no objective answer to the question. But I think in the race for anyone, Cordy's definitely up there. And season 4, however you feel about it, I think it was, I hate it, and I think it was her mistreating one of the best characters on the show. I think that there is a way within the literal lore of the show to ignore it and to just enjoy the incredible arc that is Cordelia's. To me, that season, that's a lot of conversation about what was happening outside of the show, and with the way they decided to handle Charisma's pregnancy, which is going to be a conversation that we need to have when we get there. But from the lore, if we limit ourselves to just within the core of the show itself and the actual events and what they meant, I don't think that specifically shines poorly on Cordy's arc. I think she's still up there as one of the best characters on either show, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first impressions is well named because I will agree with Tom. Season 2 and season 5 Buffy are my favorite seasons, but I had a hard time with both seasons my initial watch.
Season 2, 5, Angel are your favorites.
Yeah. Angel season 2, Buffy season 5.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But my first watch through, well, I didn't have the crossovers back then when I watched Buffy. But anyway, my first watch through of both shows, I had some problems with season 5 and season 2, and it took me a while to get to there. So every time I watch this episode, First Impressions, I am reminded of that. And part of the problem I have for this episode, well, not problem, but I was so anxious to get to the Darla and Angel ever since her big reveal.
Yes, there's one story in this episode is profoundly more interesting and intriguing than the other one, and I think that the gun journey with Cordelia is a necessary beat for his character, so that we can have that hospital scene. Nonetheless, it's still so frustrating to watch because I want to know what's going on with Angel.
Yeah, absolutely. And and Touch was the same thing. My initial watch through, I was like, can we get to Darla and Angel?
Yeah.
But David Nabbit going off. David Nabbit. I wish they would have done more with him. I mean, he could have been the brains behind the finances of Angel Investigations. You didn't need to have him in every single episode. He could be just a recurring character, but yeah, I think he would have worked, especially with season 5.
Well, it's interesting. He's like Kate. He makes so much sense to me in the original structure of the show, where it's purely episodic. He's like Kate. It's a crime or a case of the week kind of detective show. And occasionally Angel needs funding or backing in order to go do crazy vampire detective hijinks. But once they redirected to this, that fit might have made less sense to them, even though I agree with you. I think they could have done a number of things with his character. But so, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I don't think I have too much for First Impressions. I like the episode. My biggest highlight, again, is Cordelia and her just pretty much putting Gunn in his place. Just like the problem was you, and I'm going to be in your corner.
Yeah, well, he's battling nothing in the. I do love that visual that in her premonition, there's no demon. He's battling nothing. He's battling darkness. He's just battling ghosts. I love that poet. I think it's very poetic. It's nice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to end with Mr. Jack did a recut of that Judy scene in Now or Have You Ever Been? Sorry, buddy. But every time I see Wesley saying, "Hop on, gorgeous," and Angel going, "You'll pay for this," that would have been a great cut scene. I'll never forgive you. So, yeah, that's me done.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me go to Sir Jack.
Hey, man.
Jack, my lovely. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, sweetheart?
You look marvelous.
Thanks. So do you.
People enjoy your company.
Thanks, man. That's so nice. Thank you.
What first impressions?
Yeah, first impressions. I said it on the other stream, but I don't really like this one.
Yeah, I don't love it. It's entertaining.
There's some great stuff, namely the Darla stuff. I particularly like the second dream sequence where they're sunbathing in the dark, or moon bathing. I'm going to call it. Yeah, I just think it's very cool. There's this kind of surrealist, abstract vibe to it that I really like, and yeah, there's lots of thematic stuff to do with it that's really cool as well. Yeah, I like that. I laughed when Gunn called Wes C3PO. I like that. That was funny.
Yeah, that's an interesting vibe. Boy, does his character not go in that direction. That reminds me of this one's full of paranoia or whatever. Why would he say
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
you don't think I'm paranoid, do you?
but it fits at that time, and I don't know, like where's he's skinny and he's English, and I don't
Paranoid's
know,
harder.
it just yeah. David Nabbit. I mean, I say this every time he pops up, but I just wish he was around. For
I
longer.
think again, I think that actor is just so sweet. He's just like the way he plays David is so sweet and vulnerable, and there's a nice kind of innocence to him. And again, kind of like Dennis, maybe that didn't fit the tone of the universe that they were going for. Yeah, Dennis, everything Dennis does is an expression of kindness. Getting drinks,
He's a
pulling out
sweetheart.
chairs, turning the thing down, getting chastised by Cordy. Dennis, leave that alone.
Yeah.
Everything he does is kind. Keeping the door shut so that she couldn't get in because Faith was in there. So again, maybe it was just too nice.
And Josh pointed out in the chat, and it kind of broke my heart. But like, Cordy just one day doesn't come home, and Dennis has no idea,
and he's
like,
tied
he doesn't
to the
know
house.
what happened.
They don't
like
they don't exercise
so
him.
sad.
Nothing.
Yeah, like that is so heartbreaking. Yeah, I also like the when David's going on with the financial babble and Cordy gets all hot and bothered. That's funny.
The other thing that Dennis did really well symbolically was demonstrate the grayness of this universe. Not all ghosts are bad. Not all demons are bad. There's no. This is not a black and white universe, and that he was a symbol for that. Ambiguity. That I really enjoyed.
And every time, like, he takes care of Cordy, like, what is it? Is it the pregnancy episode?
Expecting.
Or there's one scene where she's like really upset, and I think like he gets her a blanket or something, and it's just so tender and caring.
Yeah, he pulls the blanket up over her when she's feeling upset and vulnerable and all of that. And I honestly, I think I've said this before in our discussions, but once I remember that episode where Spike is haunting Wolfram and Hart, and there's the demon there that kills ghosts. Mm-hmm. Or sends other ghosts to hell instead of him. He feeds hell other people so he doesn't have to go. I've always thought that's the episode where we have Dennis closure. Dennis saves Spike, or Dennis shows up in that episode. You have a cameo of Dennis where he followed Cordy to Wolfram and Hart to try and find her, and has just been wandering Wolfram and Hart.
Maybe like he sacrifices himself so Spike doesn't have to go to hell
or something. Yeah.
Give him, because he just like Nabbit, he just kind of disappears. Well, you know what I mean.
Well, Nabbit and Kate and Dennis,
they just abruptly disappear.
We all needed Dennis closure. I preferred Spike saving himself. Silver, for the purposes of that particular plot, you kind of had to have that happen. Or Fred saving Spike, which was the other thing that set up. But it still was a good place for a cameo. Or Dennis saves Spike in the middle of the episode. And then by the end of the episode, Spike and Fred fix the situation.
Yeah, like you pointed out in the video, I also like the use of practical dust. It's not the only time it happens in the Buffyverse, but I like when it does, because it's extra effort, and I appreciate the extra effort. It's just nice. Let's see.
When you make the lore concrete like that is kind of the way the universe works, having concrete consequences. I am so sick of dust.
Yeah. I also really like the Denzel Washington talk. We spoke about that in the stream. Did anyone else notice a really large amount of ADR in this one? There was like a lot.
Yeah.
Like like a weirdly large amount.
I caught the major one in the hotel at the beginning of the scene. It reminds me a little bit of Doomed after, was it Doomed after Hush? Where clearly the budget flowed differently to different episodes. And Are You Now or Have You Ever appears to be an episode that a lot of budget went to stick the landing and make everything perfect. And it's not completely unusual for there to be a rebound episode afterwards, which is a consequence of budget and time and all of that.
Right.
And I think there are signs of that in this one.
Yeah. For me, it's mostly just the writing. Like, I just find it a boring episode. I don't know. It's just, this is nothing going on really, except for the Darla stuff. It's not lazy, but it's
yeah, I get you.
And like we also spoke about at the other stream, Gunn's tough guy kind of cavalier attitude really bugged me. But then we get the reveal at the end, and he's still hurting over his sister. So I guess I can kind of forgive it there. I thought like he needs to chill, but maybe I need to chill because it's not his fault.
You're talking about him punching the wall in the hospital?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
so up until that point, it was really annoying me, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, no, I guess I kind of get it."
I think that's a wonderful emotional beat, but it's because it's the bit of his character that is unique from the trope that that he's kind of grounded in right now. Like that's the
tough guy trope,
the built connection that we have to his character because we've witnessed that occur there. And I think with the wall punch, we were just still talking about the tough guy trope. And like I said in the episode, the thing about tropes is they're just not inherently bad. Buffy is a show that was built on tropes. The nerdy trope, the nerdy boy trope, the blonde walking into the alleyway idea, like it's built on that. It's just all about what you do with it. And over the course of the show, the stuffy British guy in tweed idea. Over the course of the show, I think that it goes wonderful places, but it does take a little time for them to get going with Gunn, and I don't really feel like. Well, I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I'm taking your time.
I just think I'm very repelled by the whole men don't know how to show their feelings other than punching things trope. Like it just, I don't know, that bugs me. It always has.
And we're not saying too that those things don't exist.
Sure, they do. Yeah. I mean,
that was another thing that someone said in the stream is, but I know people like that. Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying. You know, I'm just saying. It's sort of
tropes exist because people like that exist in real life. It's
to some degree, but it's just the reliance on them and what you do with them, and for a little while, I feel like Gunn takes a bit to get going. Just for my taste. But again, it's a subjective interpretation.
Right, yeah. And I just want to say, as an Australian and the son of an English woman, I really appreciate Wesley's use of the word wanker, but I got to deduct some points because it's very obvious that it was written by an American who doesn't have that word in their vernacular because when you call someone a wanker, it's typically when they're being abrasive or rude or being kind of a dick, not when they're being vain, which is what is happening in that scene. So I like that they tried, but it didn't quite work all that well. But points for trying.
Well, I appreciate the cultural interpretation of the word wanker. That's
You're welcome. You are most welcome. Just do it right if you're going to use it. No, wait, no. You know what? You can say whatever the hell you want. Don't look to me for whatever. And lastly, in all caps, I've just got Angel did a freaking somersault in the air. Totally unnecessary, but I thought it was freaking cool. So,
Well, what about Tom's idea? Is science. He needed more momentum for the axe to penetrate Divock's head. Does
Hey,
that work for you as a headcanon?
To be honest, I just don't care. I think it's cool. Whether it was necessary or whether it helped, I don't care. It was great. But yeah, that's me done, sir. Thank you
good
very
deal.
much.
Let's go over to. I apologize. I can't remember your name. Abductkaz?
Yeah, it's Kyle.
Kyle.
And
I'll
you pronounced it pretty well.
It's going to take me a while to remember your name, Kyle. I will remember it, but I'm terrible with names, so just be patient with me and give me some time.
Yeah, I won't. I don't.
All right, well, I appreciate it. So, first impressions.
This is really weird because this is the episode that I've actually written the most notes on out of any episode, which is strange to me.
Well, it was a
because I don't
22-minute
like it
video.
that much.
Yeah,
I actually don't like this episode that much. But I think it's my second lowest rated episode after the Shroud of Ramon, but I don't know if I like the Shroud more than this episode.
Okay.
I'm like revisiting because I gave that episode a 7, and I don't know if that should be bumped up a bit. I don't know. But yeah, all right. So my first note that I have is I actually really like David Nabbit, but I could see that I just can't see him being a long-term character in the show, which is like why I guess like he wasn't there maybe, because like I can't see him growing that much apart from being like a little sweet nerd.
No, you'd have to corrupt him, I think, and I think that would kind of suck. He'd have to have some kind of. I mean, whether it's Dennis or David, like the one thing that seems to be missing is, well, we all got something to atone for. You know, the one of the standards or thing that a lot of the characters on the show have in common is their need for redemption. And David, that would have to be revealed or whatever it is if he were to become more of a mainstay or a regular character.
Yeah.
You'd have to damage him. and frankly, I kind of like him as sweet and innocent and nice.
Yeah, and they already even went over that, like when Gum brings up like, oh, you think he's like just a good citizen and stuff like that, and they just like reinforce, like, yeah, he is a good citizen. Yeah. So it's like, I don't think they could have actually crafted him without it going back on that little bit line there.
Yeah, well, they talked about he opened a hospital or something like that. I know the line that you're talking about. And I mean, I get the challenges with Dennis. You know, what do you do with a ghost that can't talk, other than to go back to the same kinds of jokes that they made for the first 2 seasons. You know, but I mean, that's just because that challenge exists doesn't mean there isn't a way that they could have written through it. You know, so
yeah, I would agree. Like that, I guess like the way I see Nabbit could be the way that I would have seen Wesley if they never made an arc of him, because like Wesley is just like a bumbling nerd at the start, and then he turns into like one of the biggest arcs in like over time. So it could just be the fact that I didn't actually get to see that arc that makes it feel like sort of unbelievable they could be able to make an arc from it.
Yeah, this makes, and again, I apologize. I told you I would never be able to remember how to pronounce your name. What if David in the YouTube chat said, "What if David had secret dealings with Wolfram and Hart?" I think that's a really interesting twist. I mean, as a financial titan, it would have been pretty hard to not avoid that. And if he had made compromises to prevent, maybe he was the reason why this tiny little detective agency flourished and went as long as it did for a little while, or whatever. I realize that plays out with the Shanshu, but he could have been keeping them safe by making compromises, which is the whole point of season 5. Is, can you compromise your ethics, do a little bad to do a lot of good? Yeah, there were lots of possibilities. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I actually had notes on season 5 for some reason in this document as well, and season 4 with the prophecy. In season 4, I actually didn't realize that the prophecy that the time traveling demon said of like the it will, or the hamburger, like the blood, it will rain fire, and the earthquake. Those all happen in the season 4. Like, he says that it will start off with an earthquake, so it all earthquakes and the world shakes, and then it rains fire from the beast, and then the blood from the bullet is the main thing from Jasmine. So all of the like 3 things from the prophecy actually come true. Like, the earthquake happens, which is like the prophecy that Wesley gets told by the hamburger in the parking lot.
Yeah.
That all actually comes true, despite it being considered like a fake prophecy.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, that was something that picked up on it while I watched it, like I think 2 weeks ago with my friend. I watched it. I was like, oh shit, this actually, like, it comes true. Yeah, and then I guess like a slight bit on season 5, because I don't know why I have it here, but I didn't like the fact that in season 5, none of the characters from Buffy ever helped Angel when he like called them up, because they was like, you're just too evil. And that's actually something that I like about Angel, which is like it deals with a lot more gray with the demons and all of that.
Sure.
Than Buffy, and it felt really, maybe not off, but like it just felt really weird that like no one would help Angel when he's like asking for it.
Well, by that standard, like the one that did come and help in season 4 being Willow is sort of beautifully fitting, given she's the dark character, the sort of gray character, or the one who deals with the most amount of gray from the show.
Yeah. I agree. Also a bit of a heel turn, because talking about the jokes, I actually really liked quite a bit of the jokes in here, and I feel like there's actually quite a few jokes in Buffy, in Angel, that are a bit problematic, but I still like it. Which is like the feminization joke could be a bit like problematic in the joke, but I actually find it really funny. And the same thing is with in the series, they kind of got rid of it, except with Spike in season 5. But the use of retard is ableist. But like, for whatever reason, I can headcanon my way into thinking like, oh, it makes sense who says it. Cordelia, Spike, and any bad person says the word retard as a joking manner, and it's never like a really good person that says like a person with 100% filter and self-awareness of like that sort of thing that actually says it.
Yeah. Well, and also I think that that you can also sort of work through that based on the show, or even the fiction of the show takes place at a particular time and place where that word now lands like a bomb. The way things were in late 90s, early 2000s, words shift in and out of the common vernacular. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and this, I guess, sort of relates to another note that I had regarding tropes, and I just said tropes seems to be an issue sometimes, but I agree, but I feel that you can use tropes and stereotypes of certain cultures, in my opinion, if you're able to make a decent commentary on them, or if you can show the growth of those characters into expanding outside of what their stereotypes and tropes are, and that shows, like, I feel like that is like textbook good representation. So even though I find Gunn quite stereotypical in this, it doesn't bother me because the growth of his character breaks that mold. Which
I get what you're saying, and I agree with you partially. I also think though that an episode has there's the journey of a character throughout a series, and there's the self-contained story of an episode itself. And certainly Gunn's journey over the course of the series is an interesting one. There are even problems. While I think the lawyer stuff and his journey in season 5 is the most interesting. I think there are challenges in that culturally to talk about whenever we get there. But I think, like, yes, there is an earned bit of we'll say we give people a little bit of rope for the journey over the course of the series, but I also think that there's sort of that responsibility that exists in every episode, and it's not that they needed to be. Buffy is a trope on the ditzy blonde girl going into an alley and getting killed by the monster that is subverted from the very first episode. Now, you can't do that every time, and that's why we say like tropes are not inherently bad. The fact that a trope exists in a piece of fiction is not a bad thing, and I think that ultimately you're correct where it's about where they go and where things play out over the course of the show. But a critical conversation still has to involve, is this trope culturally damaging? Is it boring? Is it, we still have to have that conversation on an episode to episode basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
Also, this was actually, my notes are not in the right order, but
That's okay.
on the relation to like black culture and stuff like that, it's actually something that I really enjoy, and I don't know, because I'm white and you might not be able to pick up on this, not American, so I probably don't have the expertise of like understanding what is like good black representation and what isn't. I've always enjoyed the depiction of that representation in media, which is probably the reason why I like the Boondocks quite a bit. But like I found like all of the episodes in Buffy that dabbled that, I always enjoyed that aspect. Like the Gang of Mine in season 3 is actually one of my favorite episodes of the entire series.
No, I think that's I think that is a wonderful point. I am all of my education on this kind of thing comes from research that I do for this. And I've read quite a bit from people who are smarter than me in these matters about how specific to the U.S. the issues of representation and all of that are when it comes to the Buffyverse, whether that's Faith or not Faith, Kendra,
Trick.
Mr. Trick, very specifically, like all of those things. Like when you talk about the way a piece of media handles race and ethnicity, it's also very specific to the country that media is from, and a lot of the problems reflected in the Buffyverse are specific to national problems in the United States, and they vary from country to country wildly. So it's interesting to hear your non-American perspective on it. I like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like love seeing that in media. But that I think that sort of relates to another thing where it was quoted before that like I was quoted in the video that Gunn is treated through his blackness other and separate, and I feel like that isn't necessarily wrong to show, because at that time, I think maybe specifically, I'm 19, I don't know much, but like at that time specifically, at the time specifically, I feel like the struggles of Gunn were completely unknowable for the white cast. Like they would have been completely unknowable, because like I can sort of understand and like empathize, not really know fully, but empathize with it more than I feel like a 19-year-old would be back in 1990, because like I've dealt with I've lived through, let's say, the civil rights protests of this year and stuff like that, and like getting that understanding. Where back then, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to show him as like otherized, even though that's usually bad, because I feel like he is technically otherized because his experiences are so wildly different, and I don't think the white cast members could actually understand those problems as much.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and again, I just want to acknowledge that my education on this conversation is relatively fresh and new as well, but the talking about that in 2020 is a little bit different than talking about that and the number of representations that were on screen at the time in 2000 when this episode aired. And sort of this was one of the more predominant tropes and representations that was occurring at the time, which is a part of the issue where it's limiting in and of that regard. But the other thing too is whether or not that's where things start. Do things ever get away from that? And I would say, if you've, again, it's a tough conversation, but like there's normalized white culture, and then there's Wonderland that occurs in there, and Gunn eventually, in that old Gang of Mine, is forced to make a choice between the two of them, and ends up, in normalized culture until season 5, where sort of the climax of his story is that he cannot fit into that culture, and reverts to just sort of being himself. But the there's a lot to unpack there that I just feel ill-equipped to completely unpack in this conversation. But the question that you raised is like, yes, if with this particular character and this particular set of circumstances, would that be alienating? Would that be difficult for the people meeting each other in those circumstances to sort of cross over and have conversations and all of that? Yeah, I think that that's the case. But broadly, it was partly an issue of this was the lion's share of representations that we were getting at the time.
Yeah.
So, which is how you end up in trope territory.
Yeah, I actually found it really interesting because I was speaking to my friend Shady because he's watching Angel through, and he's I think midway through season 3 with him, and I brought up the fact that like at this time when this show was about, it started off as like a noir and it had police and Kate and all of that, but at that time was a bunch of like Law and Order and like CSI and stuff like that, and the fact that they actually got rid of like the police aspect and then kind of brought in Gunn, which took in a way Kate's place because they couldn't really use Kate too much after that, I feel, because the dynamic between those two probably would have been quite tense between a police officer and an African American, so they went the African American route instead of and this is how I justified it in my mind, instead of like going through the police route, which was so prevalent at the time, which is something that I found interesting and that my friend found interesting, which is like they were subverting, like, I guess, the trend of its time, even because in 2000 there were always like a bunch of cop shows and the cops were glorified, and then like they went down the route of like exploring gun more, which went down the route of like Thin Dead Line and stuff like that, and episodes like that where it's which I think if they didn't have Gunn as a character, they probably wouldn't have touched on those topics, and they probably would have touched on maybe a more pro cop topic because of Kate.
Well, like Charlie said, to make an attempt at theme and maybe not stick the landing is still it's still interesting. There is value in that alone. So whatever we think of Thin Red Line and that old gang of mine, I appreciate She for the attempt at conversation about female genital mutilation, because that's like, when do we talk about that? And media is a huge source of conversation for us. So, regardless and no matter what, I appreciate those episodes on that merit alone. But I get what you're saying.
That also, there's like a one tidbit. I found it just like funny and like a bit of a bop, but like when they did a flashback scene of Charles when he did House Always Wins, they played Gangster in Paradise, and I found it interesting because I don't come from America. I just listened to that, I was like, oh, that's just a bop of a song. And then I watched a reactor listen to it and like watched the episode, and they're like, that feels out of place to put such like a stereotypically like urban song at like playing with him. They felt like it sounded a bit racy or something. That's what I think Liam Duke maybe reacted it that way.
Yeah.
And I found that so interesting because I watched it and I was just like, oh, this is just a bop of the song. And then so like I feel like I was completely unaware of like the
there's definitely a cultural bias with these kinds of things for sure. And I think that's useful to acknowledge. Maybe something I have to mention in a future episode guide.
Yeah. So I have I think 3 more things. One is I have a nitpick that Veronica's played off as like a love interest for Gunn, but is never mentioned ever again. Like, it was played off like they actually have a relationship or something like that, where she's like, oh, who is she? So she's like getting defensive, but they never play it off again, and she nearly died. And
in a strange way, it ends up. Well, never mind. I don't even want to go there.
I have. This is a very short note, but D-Back sucks dick. I just hate the character. I don't know. I just like really don't like the villain at all. And then here's one that I found interesting. That nearly every single person I watched it with picks up on is there's mashups and cuts to transition scenes in season 1 that are so aggressively loud and so aggressively in your face with like the white flashes of like what happened in the previous scene that gets toned down for the rest of the series, but this episode has it. And in like first impressions, there's like a cut of like 8 little motions that are super loud and white between like the between bringing Veronica to the hospital. There's like a really aggressive transition.
Yeah, I
And it's
found
just,
the
so out of place.
I found the crash cut motif that they used. That was something I had to get over while watching this series. I find it I hate it. You know, I don't like being startled. That is the least funny joke on earth is boo, and those crash cuts to me kind of fall perilously close to that realm of just unnecessary. It's tone. I mean, it's tone and design, and I appreciate it on that level. But personally, I find them a little exhausting.
I actually think that they're not well executed that much in the first season and in this episode because they do use it in later seasons, but the volume of it is toned down and they don't hit you with 8 crash cuts, they hit you with like 2 or 3, which makes it actually transition better for me personally. I don't actually hate it, I just find it funny because I'm like, this seems so out of place. It's like we're just like having this heartfelt scene of like Veronica nearly dying and then smack, 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 smack. And it's just like, all right.
Yeah. I'm sure there was yeah, I know. The only time I hear them talk about it in the commentaries was David Greenwalt talking about it in the pilot and how they kind of came to that. What's interesting too is if you play those in slow motion, there are a lot of clacker boards or whatever they're called, unused bits of footage from filming the episode itself. Occasionally you see a director. So they are an oddity. They're very curious, but they're part of the Angel DNA for sure.
Yeah. I guess my final point, and this is off topic, but I didn't realize this because I'm rewatching the series and I just finished All of Angel with my mom again, and I watched it, and I realized that nearly every single episode that I love is a Tim Minear written episode.
Yeah,
like my favorite episodes of All of Angel are Tim Minear written.
He recently corrected me. It's Tim Minear, but I think I called him Minear for many seasons. So, but yeah, Tim Minear.
So Tim, yeah, and then I'm currently watching Firefly with my mom, and he's like the second in charge to Joss Whedon. I'm like, oh, that might be another reason why Firefly feels so tightly scripted, because that's something that you brought up in Darla, that the episode feels so tightly scripted, and that's a Tim Minear episode. Yeah. And I feel like every Tim Minear episode feels so scripted and nothing feels out of place, and it feels like everything has a vision. Every scene has a vision.
I'm not just saying this because he corrected me on his name. I have found recently that his episodes were some of the ones I enjoyed the most, specifically in this season and definitely in Firefly.
Yeah, which I just found interesting because I actually really like Marty Noxon, which I think was in like early guides you spoke about how some people don't like Marty Noxon or something, or like she has like bad episodes or something.
She has some infamous episodes, I will say. I've enjoyed Marty's stuff the more I've watched. I think my favorite writer is Jane Espenson in the series, but
I can't necessarily remember what she wrote, but I know that like the only thing that comes to my mind is Shindig from Firefly, and I love that episode.
I didn't remember Marty wrote that one. Or no, Jane wrote that one. Yeah,
Jane wrote that. Wrote that one. And talking about bad episodes that I love, Beer Bad's incredible. I love that episode.
I love Beer
so
Bad.
much. The themes, like the theme, I don't care. Like, oh, beer's bad. Who cares? I don't actually find that too bad. But like, it's so funny, and I can make a very convincing devil's advocate for Parker. I can make a very convincing devil's advocate for Parker. I've already used up a lot of time, but like when we want to do that conversation, I can definitely I can definitely pull that out.
Well,
I hate Parker, but I could make a good argument.
Yeah, Jack and I recently did a segment on. I do have to move on, but Jack and I recently did a segment on the podcast called Buffy Bad Takes. I would be interested if you want to go over there and leave a comment about it. I'd love
Yeah,
to
well.
read what you had to say.
All right, thank you.
All right, bud. Let me go to Sarah. Sarah, hello.
There. Hey,
Hi.
I salute your thumbnail game.
Oh, thank you.
Especially, I think it's relevant considering how Darla ends the episode.
Yeah, I would. I don't know if I would have been brave enough to use the thumbnail if I realized that that was the implication. But I'd like to think I would. I'd like to think that I would clickbait that hard.
It would be less funny if you'd done it deliberately,
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true.
as with many things.
Well, first impressions.
First impressions. Oh boy,
The dress
this
heard round the world.
I think you could take this episode. You could use this episode to teach a university class or something, just to hold up to be like, this is why no matter how good your intentions are,
Yeah.
if you haven't lived this experience, it's going to go because that's the thing is, I believe they had the best intentions, and I think I'm going to pick up on something the previous, was it Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it raises the question, right? This is an age-old question. I think you and I have even had this conversation before. Is inadequate representation better than no representation?
And yeah, it's always a bit. I think there's no definite answer on that.
Yeah.
Because I do agree that I think Gunn does live in another world. He is othered. And I think that othering is part of the DNA of the show, given the show is centered around a monster, a reform monster, but a monster. And monsters are like, that is the site of otherness. So that other thing sort of has to come in. And I think that's, in a sense, is why Gunn sort of is natural to be there. And he does very much come from another world. In terms of race and class. And of course, like when we think about intersectionality, if we look at Gunn's masculinity, then his race is going to be a factor because it alters, black masculinity, what is different from white masculinity is different from Latin masculinity, etc. is different from Australian masculinity.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what Jack says about the misusing the word wanker is exactly it's exactly the same thing. It's somebody is writing from something that's not their experience, and so it's like, yeah, just not there. So yeah, I think that if you're going to look at this stuff, if you're going to be honest with this character, then this episode has to happen. But when you hire a white writer, and it is an external writer, it's a guy,
Sean Ryan.
He's not part of the usual team.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what we could have had if like somebody like Jordan Peele had written this. Just take a second and imagine how epic that would have been.
Or even The Thin Red Line, which has a horror zombie. Yeah, I can see exactly what you're saying.
When somebody who knows the experience, and an interesting fact about the writer, whose name isn't sticking in my head for some reason, he went on to eventually act as producer on Sean Ryan. Thank you, Boris. On The Get Down, which is a show based in the hip hop world. So there you go. It's like, hey, moving on, you then work as producer to lift up the voices that have the experience. So there's a sense of like something has progressed over time, and so yeah, Gunn in this episode is kind of like it's a moment in time where they tried and it just didn't And yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, they sort of reference Pride and Prejudice, because
I mean, shout out to
what-
Lonnie, of course. I never would have spotted that in a million years if she hadn't been the one to point that out to me. But go ahead.
of course, she made you watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that it's the second Jane Austen reference in Angel. But I love it.
More men should read Austen.
Yeah.
But the great thing about Pride and Prejudice and what makes it work is that they both change each other. Actually, though, they don't. They both reflect how they see each other, and change because of how they see each other in their eyes. Like in that most awkward proposal scene in literature.
Yeah.
He tells her, he throws in her face how he sees her, and she throws in his face how he sees her, how she sees him, and then they go away and reflect on that, and they both change. And like, if that had been the intention here, that's a lovely intention,
Right.
to examine Cordelia's prejudices, because oh boy, just Cordelia,
which end up unexamined in the episode, for sure. Yeah, which is a great point.
She's challenged on a few things, but only on very surface stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she challenges him on some deeper stuff, but a lot of it is, again, very surface stuff, and that sort of actual, hey, this is your prejudices, hey, this is how you're living your life moment doesn't really happen.
I love that. That's wonderful.
But I mean, I love that they tried.
Of course, that always goes without saying. Is I love that this was here and this was attempted, for sure. I've seen Silver make a couple of comments about yes, watching this now we have these feelings, but would we at 2000, and do they have a responsibility to us, or a responsibility to that audience?
2003, I found it cringing.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
And I know I found similar stuff to this. Like, even though my experience isn't, my experience is not white, but it's not black. I remember similar stuff to this, even as back being like, I don't know this world, but I know this isn't right.
Yeah, I mean, the word that I would use is authenticity. It's a little bit like the army stuff in season 4, where it's like, this clearly, it does not feel like any of these writers were ever enlisted, and I feel like, like the part of the movies that come to mind that were a big part of this movement were Menace to Society and what was the other one with Ice Cube and Cuba Gooding Jr., Boys in the Hood. There was a big movement of this kind of story that was bubbling up at the time, but both of those movies were written and directed by or at least I remember were directed by black directors who were sort of working from a background of experience that grounds those in authenticity. And this just trades on those ideas without feeling like, without feeling authentic, without bringing that sense of authenticity. And I think that probably felt like it was missing then, and it definitely feels like it was missing now, to say nothing of tropes and representation and all of that, which is a mire.
And of course I'm not holding them to the standards. I'm not holding the writers to the standards we would
Sure.
hold people to now.
Yeah.
I'm like, what I do is study culture.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing, so we have to talk about this.
Exactly. It's a part of the discussion. Yeah. We're not indicting the show or like all of this is a matter of sort of like, okay, so let's talk about the things that don't work. Now let's love the things that do. Which is what we're Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's not an indictment that we're doing in this conversation, is all I'm saying.
No, it's it's we must understand the past to understand where we come and understand where we want to go.
Right.
And yeah, recognizing this is what happens when people mean well but don't understand. So for future, we do what Sean Ryan, is it?
Sean Ryan,
the writer,
yeah,
and go, hey, I'm going to use my power to lift up somebody who does have the experience.
Yeah, I think that's lovely.
Yeah, that's what he's did. That's the best way to do things. But yeah, on to things that are lovely. That red dress.
Yes. Yes, we had you, Jack, and I had quite a conversation about the red dress that I will never air on the channel.
Yes, no.
Great googly moogly, that's a dress.
Yes, I think someone in the stream earlier said, I would love to pull off that dress. And I've got to say, I on into both meanings of the word.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you asked about the whole red thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a whole thing on the on my channel about red in the Buffyverse. And I draw it to comes back to Spike's discussion of red, of blood, because red, although most things have many meanings in life, red, because it has this association with blood, does tend to come down to the way we think about blood. And so it's what makes you hard. It's what makes...
Because it's always got to be blood.
Other than dead.
Yeah.
Like it's the passions. It's the, and the anger and the thing. And so that's why we have it on we have it on Gunn in throughout, like he's dealing with he's running on pure passions. He's
that makes sense.
Yeah. And that is the problem. that he's not, that he's not being more
right
thoughtful. He's just running on passions. And Divock is like, I think, intended to be like a passion monster sort of thing, an anger monster. I don't know that really worked, but I think that's sort of what they were going for.
Well, I think the parallel between him sort of being the dead end that the path that Gunn is on could be, him sort of having the red that's sort of grimy and dirty, and that sort of being the representation of time between the two of them, and Divock making the direct comparison of how do you like seeing someone more nasty than you? I think connects that theme structurally. I think it's interesting and it works. It's just I don't find him particularly.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's one of those things where some things are going to be undercooked after when other things are made perfect, then I'll take 1,000 Divocks for one Thessalact and and for one, Are You Now or Have You Ever Been?
Yes. And by the way, someone pointed out Tabula Rasa coming after Once More with Feeling, which, yeah, absolutely. But I kind of feel like that it might be one of the exceptions that proves the rule, where you have your doomed and your episodes that follow those budget and artistic explosions, and then Tabula Rasa. So it's like it's not consistent throughout the board, but I still feel like there's definitely a pattern there.
Yeah, sometimes you're going to get it right, and yeah, sometimes you're going to get the really great right, two really greats in a row.
Yeah.
But they're also like, I think the mechanics of just the writing was different in season 6 than
Sometimes a lot of these plotty they're sort of at the height of their game in 5 and 6. And for some reason, a lot of these plotty arc episodes, which this feels a little bit, it has some of the jank that you see in like the Iron Team, where it's, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't
never
know.
mind.
But yeah, I mean, the Darla scenes are fascinating. It feels so seductive. I mean, it is so seductive, but then you sort of try and think with any other part of your brain, and you're like, hey, she's super predatory. This real like abuser stuff. She's trying to separate him from his people and like make her his only comfort. And
this is it's one of the reasons why I love Untouched and its positioning in this part of the story, is because it's them, David's schoolboy smile could be could paint the wrong picture for what the writers thought was going on in those scenes. And Untouched, I think, comes along at a perfect time to say, no, we know what this is, that this is abuse, and we're not pulling a trio where we think this is all fun and games. So I love the Untouched positioning here.
Yeah, it is grooming.
Yeah.
All of Darla's behavior in virtually every scene until things take a turn is textbook grooming behavior.
Yeah. Was there anything else you want to throw out about first impressions?
I do. There are some funny, wonderful moments, and I do like the sort of Wes and an Angel little thing. But yeah, I find myself thinking the episode this could have been, but it was 2001, and we didn't have it was 2001, and so maybe this had to be a step to get to where we are, and that's good.
Well,
now
we still got Judy. Yeah, we still got Judy. We still get Arya now. It's like I still appreciate, like we said, I still appreciate the attempts at theme. No matter what.
How did I put it? Like, this is what Angel does. Like, they aim high, they try really hard, and sometimes it's amazing.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes it's this, or like there are far worse examples.
Yeah, and it's still entertaining.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate it.
Can I be a bit of a hack and say that I'm doing a thing on my channel in 2 weeks, the Friday before next Hangout.
Sure.
Sorry to be like, I want to do some self-promotion,
No,
but you're going to be perfect.
Throw it in the live chat. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I will do that.
Cool. Let's go to Mr. Boris. Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going all right.
So, defending Divac, huh?
Well, yeah, like I feel like there's been some stuff like that was said that that feels like it needs some clarification. So,
okay.
Like you were saying, how like the vampires just kind of showed up at that party, and I don't think that's what exactly happened. Like, I'm pretty sure because I actually rewatching this episode, I picked up on this. Like, Divac is a crafty bastard, and like basically like his whole ploy in the beginning of the episode, like he's showing up as the snitch guy,
mm-hmm.
and then it's like, and then like and it's like, man, like, you know, the vampires could show up. I'm in danger. And it's like, and then they show up and you think, oh yeah, he was right. But it's like but and it's never actually outright said, but like, I'm pretty sure the whole point was that like his plan there was to show up and like bait Gunn into a trap and then basically have the vampires screw everything up. But then that failed. So like he had to kind of improvise with other plans. So like I kind of like how he's kind of playing it up, like, because he's trying to play both sides and be like the demon guy and the snitch guy, and like, you know, he doesn't want to like get his hands dirty directly unless he has to. Where it's like, it's only like when he's got like when things have escalated and then like he's got Gunn by the throat. That he's like, was actually the snitch guy the whole time. Y'all got screwed. And so that's neat. And like, I'm pretty sure like the idea is that like, cause he took the car and then like that guy at the auto car place, like he said to go to the party, and like Divok was there, so like he knew the Gunn was gonna be at the party, and then like the vampires showed up, so that was all part of that plan. And I can presume that the vampires just got invited to the party just because, like, you know, that can happen. You know, they don't have to have vamp face all the time, so that's fair.
Yeah, so you're reminding me that there is a weird kind of him being sort of tricky, and there is a plot element here, but the fact that you just explained it and I still don't understand exactly what happened means to me like,
well, just because it doesn't make sense doesn't mean it doesn't make sense, if you get my drift.
Kyle, have a good one. Thanks for coming.
Bye, Kyle. And yeah, I guess just to kind of spin off from there, we'll probably go over some various topics. I kind of like how this episode is structured, as far as like, you do have the two distinct kind of plots with your Darla plot and your Angel plot. I like how one leads into the other, basically, because one, it makes Angel a tired person, which makes makes kind of him lazy and stuff. So like, he gives Cordy the car, and with that, and because he doesn't pick up the phone when she gets the vision, this causes Cordy to leave with the car and stuff, and that leads to Divok taking it, or whoever took it, and whatever. So like, essentially, like, the commentary here is that Angel is being negligent, and that in turn kind of put everybody in a worse off position. So it's, and to kind of parallel with your, because as you've mentioned, it's like a Buffy season 2 mirror image, because Buffy was kind of negligent and she screwed up, and that led to disaster.
Right.
And that's kind of what we got here, where it's like, you know, Angel has been negligent.
I see where you're going.
And been indulgent, and that in turn, like, it's kind of a little microcosm of the season of the arc, as far as like, because he's been screwing up, it led to the friends in danger, and then that's what kind of happened later on in the season also. So that's kind of nice. It's a nice way to kind of, it's a nice cause and effect, which is good stuff. And speaking of that, like, it's nice that the axe that Cordy brings is ultimately what defeats Divok at the end, so that's cool. Got your payoffs and stuff. The Nabbit thing. Like, yeah, I like Nabbit. It's a bit of a shame this is his last appearance. I don't necessarily think we needed to have him like lowered down for him to be regular per se. Like, because sometimes you can just have like kind of more minor characters that just kind of show up to have like a few yucks and stuff. Like,
what, like Lorne?
Characters like him kind of would work better on like Supernatural in a way, because like you can kind of just like those are the kind of characters you can just like you can just see every now and again, like, just like we're traveling around, oh hey, it's this dude, that's but like because Angel's kind of like kind of centered in the one place, you do kind of expect to see those characters a bit more than you might sometimes.
Sure.
So it kind of leads to that kind of thing.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that you'd have to. I'm just saying that inevitably, if Nabbit had stayed on, they would have. And the example is Lorne. Lorne is a sweet, and his place was a place of no violence. His place, and eventually he is the one who Angel has murder Lindsay in one of the more tragic beats in that episode, other than, would you like me to lie to you now? Him saying goodnight, folks, and walking away. So ultimately, either people are in need of redemption or end up corrupted by Team Angel over the process. So whether or not Nabbit, they needed that to happen for Nabbit to stay on the show. If he had stayed on the show, it would have happened. It was my point in that I was trying to make.
Well, it probably would have been like maybe faced a few more hardships at least. Like, I mean, with Fred,
Well, I mean, that's
like
what conflict is for. So of course, yeah. I'm just saying, like, poor Lorne.
Oh yeah, poor Lorne.
The person who abhorred violence the most is the one who murders Lindsay.
Oh, the irony.
Right.
Although I get like with Fred, like she was kind of a lighter person, but like she got a little bit corrupted as far as like them joining Wolfram Hart and stuff goes, but like it wasn't quite as like severe. So,
Well, I have problems with Fred's arc, but that's a different conversation. Fred's arc is often in service of the men around her. Illyria's less so, but we didn't get the full Illyria.
Well, unless you assume that like Illyria is like needs Wesley to get into the human connections and stuff.
Well, she needed a way into the group, which I think.
Also, Illyria's technically not a woman, I guess.
She's a tentacled god monster, old one. Yeah, we don't know if the old ones had gender. Who knows?
There's questions, I guess.
Although the mayor looked like a giant penis snake, so I don't know. I'm just saying. I feel like I'm derailing you, Boris. What else you got?
I guess just generally like I might be slipping a bit, but Pink Helmet Angel, good stuff there. Like in general, I probably like this episode more than some of y'all folks and stuff. So, like, I always had good times with it. Like, there's definitely like it's definitely nice, kind of with the guide and stuff to see some of the depth as far as like the foreshadowing and all the stuff. I do like the whole thing with the whole Devok gun parallel is nice. Like there's some like the whole commentary about like the demon that's also a guy. So like blurring that line is good.
Yeah, the front arc of season 2 is actually pretty intricate, and I do love all of the little bits of. I think we've talked about the repetition of him learning the same lesson, and I feel like that happens maybe one too many times, but other than that, I do love the structure of the season 2 arc, the front arc.
Yeah, I mean we'll get to that whole thing where the beige angel arc thing later, but that's it. We're creeping up on that though. It's in these discussions soon. So, the first half of season 2 is pretty. It's got more smarts than you might expect, so that's good to know.
I agree.
And, as for this episode, like it's not necessarily the best episode, but I do think it's pretty solid. I think it's better than maybe some people are giving credit for. But I guess that's about it as far as I believe. I didn't have that many notes because many of it was kind of general notes and stuff. But, and everybody else covered a lot of good stuff too. So,
all right, bud.
I guess I'll just hand it over.
Good deal. Let me go over to Lauren. Lauren.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Welcome to my new house, my own very home.
Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I've been gone the past couple of weeks. I've been moving and unpacking and
Moving
all
in
that fun.
I have friends who moved in the pandemic, and it's not fun. This is a tough year to move, so good on you.
Yeah, there was not a lot of people helping me, which I get.
Yeah.
But yeah, so first impressions. I think like most of you, it's upon rewatching, it's not as bad as I remember. Um, I really loved Gunn and Cordy's chemistry, and just the one-liners bouncing off each other, like paging Mr. Reality, paging Miss about to get thrown out of a moving vehicle.
Well, it's the closest return to the Xander Cordy sniping that we get, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, talking about, white writers writing for Black characters, I often wonder whenever I watch shows or episodes or movies like this, it's what do the actors themselves think? Like, what does J. August Richards think of this? Does he ever look back and be like, that wasn't too bad, or man, I wish I put my foot down on this one? I always kind of wonder. It's like, what do they think of it?
Well, Amy Acker, for instance, I think was the driving factor behind the Illyria turn. Was she was frustrated with, and someone's going to ask me to source this, and I don't know where the source is, but I've heard this in my travels that she was the source of, or the one who felt like Fred's arc was either underserved or had been diverted, and she wanted to play something a little bit more interesting, and so that's where Illyria came from. But so I'm sure that happens. As for whether it happened with J. August, I've lost to the ether for right now.
Yeah, but I liked. I really liked the Angel and Darla stuff, like is unhealthy and bad, no, stay away.
Well, yeah.
Will Robinson.
Yeah.
But I kind of took it as, I mean, I know a lot of people take issue with season 6 Willow and the drug parallels, but I kind of feel like that was kind of what Angel was doing too. Like he was relapsing or going back to the abuser, which, granted, Angelus was certainly no saint, but I mean, he wanted to go back to her. He did want to be there with her. He wanted to be around Darla, and I thought that was very interesting. Well,
there's an interesting commentary there of how even some of our worst, most toxic relationships there was a reason we were in them. There was something we liked about the person at one point, or something we were attracted to at one point. And part of Angel's arc has been to show that his darker desires don't completely go away ever. It told me to lose my soul in you and become a monster again, because I wanted to, because I want you so badly. And the other thing I think is interesting is, like, yes, those scenes with Darla are sexy, and I think Untouched exists as a balance to that. It reminds me a little bit of Spike and Buffy in season 2, or season 6 rather. Those scenes between the two of them, they bring the house down. James Marsters cannot help but be charismatic and charming, but that is a toxic relationship that the two of them have.
Absolutely. I mean,
but
again, I mean,
still kind of sexy, I guess. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so funny because people on Tumblr get so uppity over like Joker and Harley Quinn, and they're like, stop shipping them. It's an unhealthy relationship. I know that.
Yeah.
I It's damn good writing.
Which was the healthy one again? Scott Hope?
Yeah.
Is that the only one I'm allowed to ship? Okay.
Yeah, it's but it makes for good writing, and the Angel and Darla things, I mean, it's definitely setting up, and you know, the Darla episode coming here soon is one of my favorites at Angel. I mean, I know not a lot of people like episodes that rely on flashbacks, but
I think there's some of the best episodes in both shows.
yeah, I love seeing the like what we don't get to see
Yeah.
if not for the flashbacks. But
a lot. Yeah, the more I wrote about the series, the more I was like, wow, every flashback episode is kind of spectacular.
yeah.
So yeah, and the Fool for Love Darla pairing is probably, I mean, it's a huge high point for both shows for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, Scott Hope is a passive aggressive jerk. Yeah, he is.
Yeah. Okay. Well then, Owen. I know it's not Riley. I know it's not Riley.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Hi everyone. I'm Lauren. I'm a Riley apologist. But it's, I don't know. It just, in terms of writing and enjoying the story and what the writers give us, I like the dark, unhealthy relationships. I think the writing is some of the best, and it's,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one of the opportunities of fiction in general is like in those dark, toxic relationships are things that we maybe culturally shy away from having open discussion about. And especially in a show so themed sexuality for sure in the States. Well, specifically in the time this was airing, but I think even today is like, it's tough to have that open kind of front-loaded conversation. But through the grounding that in fiction, there's a huge opportunity to explore why were she and Spike hooked on each other in season 6? We know why Spike, but why was Buffy hooked on him? What was she getting out of that? Was it masochistic? Is to feel anything better than not feeling anything? Feel pain better than feeling nothing at all? Well, you know, like, I love those explorations. I think that they're not, nothing in that is unmined, but the willingness to go there with as responsible an eye as they managed to have, I think is why it's exciting. Is why like those relationships are so interesting. But I don't know. That might just be me though.
yeah, and we got, I think what I like the most about it is that we, up until this point, had so little of Darla. She was in, what, 3-4 episodes of Buffy season 1, and, you know, we saw her in Becoming. But, I mean, this is actually giving the character depth, and we're learning more about her, and, you know, when it's revealed that she has her soul, but she's not suffering the way Angel did, it's all so good.
Yeah. Great stuff.
But yeah, that's all I have on this one.
All right, good deal. I think, oh yeah, let me double check the anyone not on camera hiding? Not hiding by not being on camera, but hiding from me because you're not actually on my screen right now. I don't think so. So we have Mr. Josh.
Josh,
Take us home. No, I know Josh is here. I just wanted to make sure that never mind. Hi, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ian. I appreciate you and your efforts.
Thank you.
You're a great guy. So
you're a great guy.
You're a great guy. So I have a lot of thoughts. So maybe it's good that you save you for last.
May I interrupt real quick before we before we do that? I just wanted to I earlier when Sarah was what's the word? My brain is fried at this point. Earlier when Sarah was talking about live stream coming up, I forgot exactly what it was you were talking about, Sarah. Sarah, can you we don't normally do self-promotion, but this is a different kind of thing that she's talking about. So I wanted to go back to you and give you a real chance to talk about what we're all doing in 2 weeks, or what some of us are doing in 2 weeks. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, I was yeah. It's a bit weird to be like self-promoting, but in this case, because like it involves a bunch of us. We are going to be reading on my channel. We're going to be reading A Christmas Carol that I have abridged somewhat, so that we can do it in a live stream. I will be Dickens, and Josh will be Scrooge, and various people are playing various other parts. Jack obviously is Ghost of Christmas Present. So yeah.
I will be there. Lonnie from Chipperish Media is going to be there. So, yeah, I apologize. I was confused by your request, and I was like, "All right," but I'm in live stream. You know yeah. So yeah, if you could, now that we've given it a shout out once again, drop that in to chat. I appreciate it. Okay, Josh. Last but certainly not least. A lot of thoughts. First, well, that's the thing is like first impressions is curiously dense, isn't it?
It is.
There's a lot here.
And we're doing a whole lot of reflecting on an episode that's called First Impressions for it to be called First Impressions.
I saw you say that, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to give him that chance.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I was thinking a lot about Gunn, both metatextually and thematically. And I think that you know, there's a couple of thoughts that I have about Gunn as representation. Generally, I find him to be pretty good representation, especially for the time, and in some ways a little ahead of the time. His "What about the black man?" speech in Wolfram and Hart's lobby, I feel like is pretty. I don't know if bold is the right word. Pretty out there for a show that's so predominantly white. Mm-hmm. It calls itself out in a way that I really enjoy. And lest we replicate what we're saying as one of the errors that, you know, Whedon and company and Sean Ryan, the writer, perpetrated. Like, to my knowledge, and I haven't seen Russell's face in a while, to my knowledge, none of us are Black Americans.
Right.
So we have the opportunity to reflect on the episode, and what I would hate is for anybody who grew up watching Gunn and saw themselves to hear us saying Gunn was terrible, or and I realize it's not what we're saying exactly, but
no, I love that.
That somebody encountering Gunn, especially during the 2000-2001 television season in America, when Angel was airing against Dharma and Greg, the Gina Davis show, Big Brother, Dark Angel, Dag, Dead Last, and of course Frasier.
Okay.
Those were all in the 9 o'clock time slot on Tuesday nights in 2000.
Context is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
And it wasn't, from my perspective, it wasn't an uncommon trope of the time,
right,
to have representation be highlighted through bumbling majority characters.
Mm-hmm.
A la Cordelia sticking her foot in her mouth over and over at the party, and just like repeatedly getting called out by Gunn all throughout the episode at every Sunnydale High, admittedly not a haven for the brothers, comment that she makes, and there's I think actually Frasier is a really good example of this trope in action, of Frasier and Niles bumbling into a scenario where they are outside of their context, and their characters are made the fool of as a way of illustrating, inclusion and diversity topics of the time. So I find it perfectly in practice. And like I said, a little ahead in some ways. When we get to the thin deadline, I'm going to have some thoughts.
Cool. I love it.
And I also agree with some of the things that were said earlier about like Gunn being the other is the point. And I think that is actually the difference between Gunn and Judy.
Okay.
Because you mentioned in your review that Are You Now or Have You Ever Been did a lot of work to highlight the sameness of Angel and of Judy and of the two men in the hallway and stuff like that. But Judy was an African American character in an explicitly white world. She was outside of her context. Cordelia is the white character who is in the majority on the show in Gunn's world. And I think that the show's decision and whether this was Sean Ryan's conscious choice or not, I think the show's decision to leave us uncomfortable with Cordelia's presence and movement through that world was kind of good and the point. Because it reminds me of a lot of the misappropriation and misapplication of Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech of my children. Yeah, of my children being judged by the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. Like, the color of Gunn's skin is relevant to who he is.
Sure.
His economic status is relevant to who he is. And Cordelia getting a 360 picture of that is essential to her getting along with him and understanding him better than any of the characters at this point.
I agree. I'm not pro colorblindness because I think.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah, I'm not. That's not at all what I'm advocating for in these discussions. I'm just, in terms of her fish out of waterness and what Sarah was talking about in terms of them learning about each other and accepting each other and both changing by the end of them. I think that there is setup here for that to have happened with Cordelia, but the ending forces all of the change onto Gunn. And the rest of that fish out of water story that exists sort of just doesn't go anyplace. And I see the value of it that you're describing, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not anti-trope, provided they serve the story and go a particular way. And there's a huge direction they go in season 5, which we'll get to, of course. I'm just saying here, it doesn't always feel like it serves the story to me. It just serves as
I definitely agree.
Backdrop painting.
Cordelia and Gunn, they definitely walk away with a lopsided lesson.
Right. And that undercuts some of what I to me personally, if I'm wrapping my mind around what it is you're saying, I feel like it undercuts that being good work. Does that make sense?
I agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree with the dismount and the execution. Definitely not having stuck as well as it could have. I think what I'm advocating for is that it was closer to hitting the mark than maybe we've been saying this whole time.
That's fair.
And I mean, that also ties in nicely with the thematic parody of this episode. I mean, you mentioned it. It foreshadows Dark Angel or Gray Angel or Beige Angel or whatever we call them, Taupe Angel, for later on in the season. But I think it does it in a really specific way that I didn't quite catch on to until I was considering it for this discussion. And for me, it came about from asking myself the question, why did the powers send Cordy this vision? And I think every time there's a vision on the show, that's the question that needs to be asked. What was the point of this vision? And so the point of this vision to me is that the powers were trying to warn Angel about himself. Because if a big chunk of season 2 is that Angel is his own worst enemy, and that's the thing that Cordelia swoops in and tries to teach Gunn this episode, Angel was supposed to have been able to be there to also learn that lesson. So, because she is his link to the powers sent her the vision. First thing she does is pick up the phone and call him. And the only reason that he misses out on this lesson is because of Darla's ongoing abuse.
I love that. That's great. And it works well with the way it's foreshadowing. It's the literal for the foreshadow. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful reading.
The powers spend a lot of time trying to teach Angel things, a lot more than they do actually giving a crap about saving anybody.
Well, and there's also a reading of the show where the powers that says the powers are one of the major big bads of the show, and there's a sequence. I think it's in the next episode or the episode after where Angel is about to tell everyone about the dreams that he's having, and there's a vision that occurs right in that moment. And I bring it up in that episode guide.
You're right, and Boris brought it up in the chat just now.
Yeah.
This is why the powers send Angel the vision of Bethany in the next episode.
Okay.
Because Darla's ongoing assault interferes with Angel's ability to learn this lesson. So the next episode, they send Cordy a vision of somebody enduring sexual abuse to try to teach Angel and show him what is happening to him. Because as you talked about a little bit, and to kind of expand on, Darla at this point is isolating Angel, which is a classic abuse tactic. She's cutting him off from his other supports, and it's working. And the powers realize that when Angel does not participate in their assigned mission this time around. Yeah, we get Pink Helmet Angel, but he doesn't come in until right at the end. And so he misses the whole, like, you were the only one in the vision that I saw, Gunn. He misses the whole point of that.
Yeah.
So the next episode, they send Angel the vision of Bethany to try to show him what is happening to him. And they do it when they do it because, and this is maybe a little triggering to discuss, and probably was this whole time, but one of the unfortunate realities is that somebody who is enduring abuse is less apt to leave until they admit that they are enduring abuse. Angel was not going to try to do anything about Darla so long as he didn't realize what was happening to him.
Right. I mean, and then Bethany makes a line in Untouched about the dreams sounded pretty good to me. By the way, that is something I want to acknowledge here and to everyone in chat. I've been following along the conversations that people have been having today. I wanted to say I appreciate that these can be very spicy conversations, and it looks like today we're all kind of disagreeing, but doing so with patience and understanding, and I appreciate that, especially when we get to Untouched, especially when we get to further Gunn episodes or Billy or any of those. These are tough things to talk about, and tough triggering things to talk about, including me for some of the topics that we're going to get into. So I just want to say that I appreciate one of the things that I think is amazing about this community is that by and large we can have these discussions and without getting combative, personal, or any of that. So I'm grateful for that, and as long as we maintain that, chat stays open. I'll keep streaming these and so forth, but I just wanted to say I know that some of this stuff is tough. So go ahead, Josh.
So the powers send Cordy the vision of Gunn, and Gunn is he is by himself in the vision. He's swinging wildly.
Yeah, which I love. I love that.
and he is filmed against a completely black background, frontlit, in a way that is entirely too similar to Smoking Angel dropping the cigarette on the gasoline. Be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Gunn is Angel in large chunks of this season.
I agree with that for sure.
And so the power, and it's the same kind of a deal, you know, when I think in the episode, one of the Darla Drusilla episodes where they're racing off to try to find Darla before she rises, and Cordy gets a vision like mid drive, like the powers keep trying to like, hey, let her go, and he keeps missing it, and it starts with this episode. He keeps missing the lesson, and it starts in this episode. So I really liked this episode a lot on my first watch. I'll tell you why in a second. And I really like it more and more the more I dig into it, because I think that it's a really good example of Angel being his own worst enemy in several different ways.
Okay.
So far and away, my favorite part of this episode is my High Queen Cordelia. When she's in the hospital and she intimidates a carjacker, like while her sleeves are soaked in someone else's blood, without even looking at him, she just like over her shoulder, like senses his presence and is like, hang on a second. And like, that's Cordelia. That's why I love her. And she's fantastic. And this whole episode, like she gets the vision and she can't get a hold of anybody. And she's like, all right, cool. I guess I'm going to go save Gunn with no resources, with no skills, with no like idea of where she's going or what she's going to do. She just is like, cool, to the point that her sweatpants and messenger bag and like messy ponytail is like almost as iconic a superhero outfit for her as Angel's black trench coat.
Yeah, I was going to say she's clear on what her superpower is.
Yeah,
and you see it in that elevator sequence.
And that's how you take a high school alpha bitch and turn her into a queen.
Mm-hmm.
And when later on, several behind the scenes folks have made a comment about why, Charisma Carpenter didn't come back, and like, well, we kind of carried the character as far as we could. I watched this episode with rage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, could you imagine? And we get it in brief sparks in season 3 of Angel and Cordy being back-to-back badasses. But like, this is the queen right here.
Was their romance a mistake? Do you feel like that was maybe a mistake for her character to like? Yeah,
I'm a Kangel shipper.
Okay.
I prefer Angel to Bangel. I prefer Kangel to Crew, whatever Cordelia and Gru's ship name is.
Well, yeah. Who ships Gru? No. Diet Angel. No one ships Diet Angel.
Kangel is the healthy adult relationship that this show had an opportunity to show viewers what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's not really when we talk about all of this, like the reason I talk cookie dough shipper is because one of the big takeaway, like we're talking about with Buffy and Angel, we're talking about teenagers and 20 and 21-year-olds, like, and the thing I love about cookie dough shipper is like you have to learn to love yourself, validate yourself, be proud of yourself. Independently first to be in a healthy relationship, and
which Cordelia will do over the course of the seasons.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. She's more mature than Angel is. I'm not sure that Angel is healthy and adult in that relationship, but I think I agree with you about Cordy.
So many people are more mature than Angel is.
Yes.
But no, I really liked this episode, and I feel like it it is closer to hitting the target than we were discussing up until this point. And I mean, Cordy can't be. I actually enjoyed the Cordy Gunn plot a great deal. Like I wasn't bored while I was with that plot. I was like, yeah, all right, this is, we're off, while riding off into the night together to do, we don't even know what, but we're gonna do it, man.
I wish I felt the same. I would love to have that experience with this episode
Yeah.
for sure. Well, I do have to wrap up. Is there anything else you want to throw out about first impressions?
That's all I got.
All right. And by the way, Boris, I'm not anti-Gru. I'm just saying, is there someone who ships Gru and Cordy over Angel and Cordy? Thank you for coming. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna plug Gru and Anya.
Gru and oh, I like it. All right, my friends. So, Sarah, what day is Christmas Carol? Because we're
It's the 11th. It's the Friday, so the day
and then
before
this is a Saturday. Okay, 2 weeks. We're gonna do the last hangout of the year, and then we'll start again in January. But with holidays and all of that, I don't know where I'm gonna be. I know Jack is may not be around. So what are we talking about? What's the episode in 2 weeks? Out of my mind.
Out of
mind.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 weeks we'll talk about we'll do the rewatch the hour before, the way we did today. I feel like that's the best way to do it instead of random evenings during the week. Just put it all on the same day and the same thing. And scripts are going well. There should be a new video. The last podcast, I wrote a thing that ended that podcast that I wasn't sure about at the time, but I'm happy with it, and I don't say that very often. So check that out. Go check out that podcast. Jack and I are having fun, and we're gonna do New Year's resolutions and start doing top fives for the year. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone in the YouTube stream. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.